Chronicles. Actually, they've always been kind of a part of Sasquatch Chronicles. They're not really new to the show, probably new to the audience, but I wanted to go ahead and introduce them. Everyone knows Woody, my brother Woody. He's kind of come back to the show on a permanent basis, along with Will and I. And we're also going to be adding Ramona. Ramona's been working with us for a few months now. She's been kind of in the backdrop, doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but she's been helping us a lot with some projects we have coming up. So you guys might see the Sasquatch Chronicles brand kind of build a little bit from this point on, but she's been helping with that on the back end. And so what we thought we'd do is kind of introduce them, bring them on, bring Ramona on, bring Woody back, take the show bigger than what it has been in the past. So tonight, Will, Woody, and Ramona will be taking over the show for the night. I kind of feel like I'm handing over the keys to the Millennium Falcon, so, not one scratch on my show. I'm just joking.
It'd be a wild ride with.
Well, you heard what happened to Han Solo. He broke his ankle on the Millennium Falcon, so, I hope you can watch tomorrow, brother. That's all I can say.
Yeah, bring my shit back in one piece.
We can't promise anything against.
Yeah. So I'll let you guys take it over, and this will be nice. I'll be able to sit back like a fan and just listen to the show. So I'm kind of excited.
We have two guests, and Bob Garrett's back. Everyone has been waiting of the week for the cliff holder about his scariest encounter. But our first guest is Deidre. Hi, Deidre. This is Will, Wes,
Hi.
Woody, and Ramona.
Hello. Hi.
You've got the full lineup tonight.
Oh my goodness.
Well, we're trying things a little bit different starting this week. So what I'd like to have you do is to begin by just telling us about your encounters, and then after that, I have some questions I want to go through with you about, and then everyone else may have questions also, if that's okay.
Of course. Okay. Well, I can tell you that I live in Central Texas in a rural area. It's near Fort Hood, Texas. And I have two dogs, a blue heeler and a pit bull, and I walk them early every morning. Usually between 6 and 7 in the morning. So I noticed in 2007 that there were some strange, I've noticed when I was out walking, we have these big, I guess they call them like, okay, what kind of trees are they? They're big, bushy, kind of pinyon pine tree type things here. They're not very big, but they're like real bushy. They're maybe like 15 feet high or so. Anyway, I kept noticing on the walk that these branches were being like twisted and popped, kind of like twisted, maybe like, I don't know, like something was taking them and twisting them and breaking them, but like up toward 10 feet in the air. Well, I mean, I'm kind of like the rest of a lot of America. I've seen a lot of Bigfoot shows and stuff, on TV, and I had seen this one thing in the 90s called Animals, I think, and they were talking about, I'd never heard of this, but they were talking about how they had this idea that Bigfoot like broke branches, and that's how they marked their territory or something. I can't remember. But anyway, so I thought, that's kind of interesting. That was in 2007. Okay, I also wanted to tell you that I live about a mile from the Lampasas River. And I guess a couple of weeks after I had noticed the tree branches, I was walking. It was really early. Like I said, it was probably around 6:15, 6:30 in the morning. I noticed that everything was really quiet. Like I usually stop in this one part of my walk where I give the dogs some water and I take some water myself. And I didn't hear like any birds chirping. Everything's waking up early in the morning. And then I heard like this weird like, and it wasn't like a dog because, dogs kind of go, oh, like that. Sorry. But it was a lot deeper than my voice. Okay. It was like a male, like really like, really loud. And, my dogs, they just didn't even react to it. It was weird. So, I mean, it went on for a good, I don't know, I'm going to say 15 or 20 seconds, like longer than a person could probably do it, like maybe something with bigger lungs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of really creepy, like the hair on the back of my neck stood up and I was kind of like, what? So then I guess a couple of weeks after that, I kind of walk around in the same area all the time every morning. I've got a neighbor, okay? One of my neighbors has a chain link fence. It's about 5.5 feet high from off the ground. It's got wooden posts, and the wooden posts are in the ground with concrete. Anyway, my dogs always stop, and they like to sniff around that area and do their business and stuff. Anyway, I started noticing that the fence at the top was like pushed down, you know? So I thought, great, like this guy's got teenagers getting on his land or something at night, or somebody's getting on his property, you know. But I started really kind of taking a good look, and I noticed that if somebody's going to climb a fence, at least I know in my youth when I climbed fences, I put my feet in the bottom part of the chain link fence, you know, and then you pulled yourself over. This didn't have any stretching. Like, I can send you some pictures of it if you want me to. This doesn't have any, like, stretching or give at the bottom, like where somebody would put their foot, you know, and climb over. It was like somebody who had 5.5 feet legs, you know, just kind of like held on to the top of it, kind of pushed it in some, and stepped over. Yeah, I thought that was like really very odd. So, I know some other people kind of walk once in a while too. Well, there's a veterinarian that walks, and I see him occasionally. And I told him, because I knew that he knew this neighbor, and I didn't know this man. And I said, you might want to tell your neighbor that I think somebody's getting on his property. You know, you might want to have him kind of, you know, come out and look at this. So I noticed the very next day when I walked by, I guess the man had taken, because it looked like something was like putting their hand down next to the wooden post. So the man had taken nails, like he took nails and like pounded it into the post, you know, to like keep whoever it was from putting their hand on the post near where they had pushed the fence way down and made it sag to go over. Anyway, it was kind of interesting. Then I started kind of noticing there's an area where after it rains sometimes there's this ditch and it fills up with water, and my dogs, oh my God, they love to run and stomp around it and then drink out of it and stuff. Well, I noticed when it was drying up that I kept seeing like footprints, like a person, but like big footprints, like 14, 15 inches, like much bigger than my foot. Sometimes I would see partial footprints. Sometimes I would see like a whole footprint. I sent you a picture of one. It's out of that ditch area. And I just noticed that it was very, you know, it was just weird. So I asked the veterinarian when I saw him walking, I said, you know, do you know what this is? Do we have bears in the area? I mean, you know, I was trying to kind of like, you know, was this a bear? I don't know. He said it was not a bear print, and that we had not had bears in Lampasas County since the 50s, because he kind of grew up in this area. So I was back to, okay, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? I do have other pictures, but they don't always come out so good because I'm taking them with my cell phone. So that was one of the best ones that I have that I sent you. So anyway, I just kind of skipped to 2008. I had another strange experience where my husband was out of town, and I woke up like around 1:30 in the morning, and something, I don't know if it was in my backyard or if it was in, because I have like a field and then kind of a mountain behind our property, and I heard like this, like, again, like deeper than I can make my voice, but it was kind of like, whoop, 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 but like deeper than that. And then I was kind of laying there like freaking out, like, what is this? I heard my cat, because my cat had been out, and he was at the back door, and he's like, meow, meow, meow. And so I'm just like frozen because I'm freaking out. And then I hear this thing, it starts chattering, like, I know this sounds retarded, but just like this weird chattering. I've never heard anything like that. And then it would stop and go whoop, whoop. And then it started mimicking my cat. It was like meow, meow, meow. And I thought, my God, this thing is like trying to get my cat. I'm very protective of my animals. So I turned the light on. It stopped, like instantly, like no sound at all. There was no, and my dogs, they sleep on either side of the bed, on their bed. They were sitting up, but they weren't making any noise at all. And these dogs will bark at other dogs in the middle of the night and wake us up. They'll bark at my cats. They'll bark. And they were not barking. It was so strange. So I got up and crept to the back door, because we have a back door off of our bathroom on our patio, off our bedroom. And I opened the door just slightly, and my cat like shot in like the devil was after him. So that was weird. I did not turn lights on outside or look around or anything because I did not want to see what was making that noise. So I guess I'm going to say later on in the year, like the end of 2008, maybe 2009, my husband was out of town again, and my mother-in-law was visiting. We both woke up probably like, I want to say around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. We heard this god-awful screaming, like someone being slaughtered is the only way that I can put it. I mean, it literally, I sat up in bed, and I ran into the hallway, and my mother-in-law was already in the hallway, and we were just like, what? And we were like looking out all the windows, trying to see, like if we could see something. We were not going to go outside, and I did not want to turn any lights on. It went on about 10 minutes or so, and to begin with, we thought, my God, somebody's killing someone. Somebody is being slaughtered. And I don't know why we didn't just call the police, but we were so freaked out. And then afterwards, when we were talking about it, we thought, well, it didn't really sound like a human being, but then it kind of sounded like a woman. I don't know. It was very strange. Then I guess maybe later on in 2009, in the springtime, another neighbor that lives right next to the neighbor who's got the fence that got pushed down, his fence, he has a chain link fence too, okay, but he's got metal poles, and these poles are in the ground with cement. Okay, somebody or something had pulled part, I'm going to say about a 20-foot long area of his fence. They pulled up 3 poles out of the ground. Wow. With the cement still attached to it, pulled up and out towards the road, not towards the inside of the fence, like if a car had hit it, you know what I mean? I'm talking something had pulled the fence up, okay? I don't know this neighbor.
That's definitely not something that just anybody could do, so that's going to draw some attention.
Yeah, with concrete, that's something a machine has to do.
It's right by...
Or myself. I said not just anybody, but I think I could probably do it. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, because I've done a lot of work. Wes and I have built a lot of fences and stuff, and those things are not light. I mean, they're very, very heavy. We're talking probably 150, 200 pounds, and for someone to pull that amount of weight,
the resistance of the soil with the concrete.
It was right by where the dogs like to. What was weird was it's right next to the what I call their watering hole, where I see the footprints and stuff. Okay, and it just, I was like, my mom was walking with me that day, and we just looked at each other because we had already come to kind of the idea that, well, maybe there's like Bigfoot, maybe he's in this area. I don't know, because, the TV shows always say, oh, no, they're in the northwestern part of the United States and Canada, and, this is like Central Texas. There's nothing, they're not here. They're not here, So we were just like, okay, something bizarre is going on here. I know that when my neighbor put his fence back up, within the net, it took him a couple of weeks. He now has, like, you know what I mean by the concertina wire, that the rolled barbed wire, he's got that all around his fence now on the top. Wow. So I thought that was very, very strange. So, and then I guess I would say, then I guess I jumped to like June 2013. We have fruit trees in our backyard. I have a huge peach tree that's like, I don't know, I planted it 15 years ago, so it's big. I know I've never had anything happen to the peaches or anything, but something or someone came in my yard in the middle of the night and getting ready to pick the peaches. They cleared the whole tree off. But what was weird was they were all like dropped along, we live on a dirt road, a private road, and all the way up to the highway, there were like half-eaten peaches and stuff on the ground, and like they were just all gone. Very strange. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I'm just saying. And so then I guess it's all leading up to August of 2013 when I finally think I saw the thing. And this was in the afternoon, and I was driving down a county road. And it was the county road 60 miles an hour, so I was going 60 miles an hour. And this is right across the street from my private road, and I was coming from, my mother lives a mile away from us, and I was going into town. I saw this, I just looked over to the right, or I never would have seen it. It was kind of stepping into a tree line that's right next to the road, and it was like this inky black, like really kind of like sturdy looking, like bulky figure. I'm not good at judging size or height, but I know that it was well over 6 feet tall because it looked tall standing next to the tree, which was like a big ash tree. But it was stepping into this really thick area of bushes and trees and stuff, and it didn't, I couldn't make out the features because I was going so fast and I just saw it for like 2 seconds maybe. But it was, the only way I can describe it is, you know how when you see a black cat, you know, when you're out driving or something and they just have that inky black look when you see them?
Right.
Like, you know, like the sun, or like they're just absorbing the light. That's kind of what that fur looked like on it. And it kind of had like a head that kind of like went up to a point in the back, like the forehead was flat or something. Mm-hmm. And then it just went like straight down from the back, because I kind of saw it at a diagonal angle. I didn't see it head on, and I didn't see it completely sideways. It was kind of at a diagonal. Well, yeah, kind of. All I thought to myself was, I did not just see that. Not in August in the middle of the afternoon. It's 90 degrees outside. They tell you on TV that these things like only come out at night. Why am I seeing this in the middle of the afternoon? I mean, it just freaked me out. I was like, no. That was what I was thinking. No. I did not see that. I did not see that. And it just made me sick to my stomach. So anyway, that's kind of where I am, and that's why I sent you I love your radio show, because I just feel like you guys are treating this like what I think it is. Because if it's a wild animal, I do not understand these people that are on TV that are running around wanting to sing Kumbaya with these things. I mean,
well, I'll tell you, all four of us have seen these things, and we know exactly what you're talking about, your feelings, and I think a lot of that Kumbaya attitude is from people who really don't know what they're talking about. They haven't seen anything, or if they have, it's some result of their psychological reaction to whatever they saw, and it's not accurate. So I'm going to run through a number of questions, and
okay.
Some of these may seem like they're repetitive, but it's so we can kind of maybe dig at the encounters a little bit, if that's okay. Okay. Now, but during all these incidents, from the beginning in 2007 to 2013, you mentioned your mother-in-law was with you, but was anyone else with you during any of those occasions?
My mother occasionally walks with me. She has smaller dogs, and sometimes she would meet me and walk with me. So she's seen the footprints, she's seen the fence pushed down, and she saw the fence pulled out.
How about any other people? Were there any others nearby who may have seen or heard any of these things during those times?
Okay. Just random things. I can tell you a couple of random things. I have another neighbor who lives on the same road that I actually know. And she and I, like if she sees me out, we'll stand there and chit chat. She lives almost across the street from the guy whose fence at the top was being pushed down. And her husband was deployed at the time. So I was stopped and I asked her, I said, is everything okay? Do you guys need anything? Because kind of Army people, we all sort of taking care of each other. She said, no, I'm doing fine. She says, I like to sit out here at night. She said, but the other night I was sitting out here. Now, there's a house that's right across the street from her that was for rent, or on this road. It's not really a street, but a road. And they were military people, and they had rented their house out. There are woods behind all of this on this property, and there's like a pond, and there's a big ranch behind there, too. So anyway, she said, yeah, she goes, I was sitting outside in the front yard, but I don't do it anymore because a few nights ago I was sitting out here and I heard somebody walking around in that yard that those people, they've rented their house out. They're gone now. They've gone, to another base. And she said, I called out, and because she said they were stomping around. It was really loud. They were like, thump, thump, thump. And so she said she called out and said, hey, I have like a weapon over here, so you need to leave. She said there was just silence and nothing else. And she said it kind of creeped her out and she went in her house. Well, I tried to tell friends and family about this, and they just kind of laughed at me, so I wasn't going to tell my neighbor, gee, maybe Bigfoot was stomping her house over there, okay? Yeah. So
that's the only people we tried to tell were friends and family, right?
Yeah.
You know, offhand, if anyone notified any sort of authorities or any authorities may have been involved in these incidents?
I don't know. I really don't know, to tell you the truth. I know that there's another neighbor that, because I walk down this road and it curves all around in different areas and stuff, and there's another neighbor that's maybe an eighth of a mile or something away from the people that had the fence pulled up.
Mm-hmm.
They put concertina wire around their yard, around their fence. Very strange. And this is something new in the last year that they did this. But, and I didn't want to, I don't want to be a nosy, hey, excuse me, but why are you putting, that wire up on your fence?
It seems unusual, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I realize that, it's a rural area, but there's really nothing that you have to really be afraid of out here. I mean, it's not like, I don't know. I mean, we feel safe, and for God's sake, it's Texas. Everybody's packing, I mean.
Right. Now, let me ask you, did you feel after people sort of didn't want to accept your story that you needed to keep the account secret?
I don't know. I tried reaching out to different people and stuff, but then I didn't get anything back. I don't know. I went back and forth, kind of like I when I first wanted to tell people, but then you kind of get negative feedback. So then I was like, I'm not saying anything. In fact, when I saw the thing last August, I didn't even tell my family right away. It was kind of like, no, I'm not saying anything because everybody's going to think I'm insane. I am not saying anything. So,
what made you finally decide to come out and talk about this publicly?
Because I like your radio show, and I feel like you guys are just kind of letting people talk about their experiences and not feel, like they're insane, or that, they're being told, no, well, it's not in your area, so, you must be imagining things, or you must,
That's the answer we were looking for. Good answer.
Did you have any thoughts about why the creatures might have been doing the different things they were doing?
I think they're moving in and out of the area, because it seems like there'll be like these little spurts of activity, and then there won't be anything at all. So I don't know if they're just kind of moving around. I think they kind of stay in this area, but I got to be honest, I think they're just living under everybody's nose.
And it is how they move throughout their ranges. They don't stay in one place very long.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you things like with your fruit trees. I've seen that a few times before. I don't know if Wes and Woody are familiar with the area just north of the town of Carson, but there's a number of old abandoned fruit orchards out there. One place I'm thinking of is a lot of cherry trees. The house and everything was long gone. There's just a bunch of trees out there. And a couple of times I was out there in the late 80s, early 90s, and just like you mentioned, up to a height of maybe 12 or 13 feet, everything was stripped. All the cherries gone, and same with apples and other places also. So, and like the chattering you mentioned, very common in these situations. Let's see.
Well, that just scared me to death. I mean, I've never heard anything sound like that before.
Based on the movement, and you and Will kind of been going back and forth on how they travel and stuff, have you seen, when you were talking about how it rains and the ditch filled up full of water and you were seeing the footprints, did it look like they were going into the water, coming out of the water? Were they traveling through that canal? Did you see the footprints further down?
Okay,
you know
yes,
what I mean?
I did.
Type thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It seemed like they were going in one direction, like away from the neighbor who they were just pushing the fence down towards the neighbor that they pulled the fence out. It's kind of in between there, and I would see like the.
So that was their comfortable way to travel back and forth without being.
Yeah,
okay.
that's a good question.
Right.
We found tracks. My brother-in-law did in 2005 near the Carbon River, and that's what the creature was doing there. In fact, it was funny. He thought it was he had seen a father and his kids out playing in this little watered area near this creek, and was riding his mountain bike, and he came by a few days later when the water had dried up a little bit and saw these footprints. And we were in the field at the time, about 700 miles away, and we were talking about this, and I said, geez, that you found Sasquatch tracks. He described how large they were, and when we went back, of course, there were more than 100 tracks through this waterway, and they were a little over 14 inches, about the size of the Patterson Sasquatch tracks. So, and years ago, Bob Titmus found the same thing. A Sasquatch is walking through a small pond. He actually drained the pond to cast the tracks, but they seem to do that on a fairly common basis.
Yeah. I just got the feeling that they were maybe stopping to drink water or something, because it was like it would always be on the edge. You know, like it would fill up, and then when it would start to recede, it was like they were standing on the slope of it, like I maybe just like either stepping over or like standing and getting something to drink, I guess. I don't know.
Right. How do you feel about how do you feel about being in that area after knowing what's there now?
You know, I feel like this whole experience has ruined my love of nature, because now I feel like I have to have eyes in the back of my head, because I don't know if one of these things is going to, like, you know, I don't know. It just, it creeps me out. And I grew up, I'm from Arizona, okay? So I grew up in Phoenix, and, you know, we went hiking in the mountains on the weekends and camping and fishing, and I love the outdoors and I love to be active. But now I feel like I would have to, like, take my husband's AK-47 to, like, go camping anywhere. Right.
How do you think you'd react to another encounter with one?
Oh, my God. I probably would, like, probably vomit or something. I mean, it just freaks me out. I'm going to be honest with you. I wish that you guys knew how to get rid of them, because if I could get them out of this area, then I would be very happy. I don't like them there. It creeps me out.
Kind of off the subject a little bit, but what kind of dogs do you have?
I have a blue heeler and a pit bull.
Oh, hey, I got two of them myself, and my brother has one. But you know what? You still feel like you might have, so you kind of feel like you have to watch your dogs all the time. You don't want them disappearing, right? And that's kind of an eerie feeling as well.
I don't let them out at night by themselves. If they need to go out in the middle of the night, I keep them close to me. I will turn the lights on in the backyard, and we have motion sensor lights and stuff now that my husband put in, and I stand in the backyard with them while they go to the bathroom. But I don't let them go anywhere without me.
Do your motion sensor lights ever come on for apparently no reason?
Yeah, sometimes, but I guess I always think we have a lot of deer here, and, you know, critters, like we've had skunks and possums. And
I was thinking back to the Honovia situation where they had the motion sensors in, and these creatures they figured out how far they could come in where it would trigger those lights, and they laid sticks down to mark the distance.
Oh, that's horrible.
That was going to be a question that I had, if she had noticed anything like markers, trees, limbs, branches laid out about the yard anywhere near the motion sensors.
I had not thought to look for anything like that. I mean, I could, but I hadn't really, I'm not really an active, like, I got to tell you, I'm not actively like, oh, I want to be like a Sasquatch hunter now. It's more like I'm looking like I don't want a Sasquatch to, like, grab me and eat me and my dog. So that's kind of the viewpoint that I'm coming from. Like,
right. Defensive. Yeah.
I don't think any of us want to be lunched.
Yeah, no. I don't understand people that are all like, a Sasquatch and calling them and stuff. I mean, are they insane? If these things are like bears, they're big like bears. I mean, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go stomping off hunting bears in the woods.
Those people have no idea what they're doing with wildlife.
They have no idea whatsoever. Absolutely. Yeah. Right after West encounter, we went back. This was like about 2 weeks later after we had our encounter to the same area. Mm-hmm. And I have two pit bulls. Wes has a pit bull, and they're full size. He has a male, I have two females. And we took the dogs out with us, and they did pick up on the scent in the same area. And so Wes and I got very, all our alerts went on, our spider senses all went on, and it turned out to be a deer. But I was very fearful for what this thing and what it could do to my dogs. It could absolutely rip three pit bulls apart with no problem. It would be like a breakfast for them. You know what I mean? And I'll never forget that when we were walking down the same road. It happened to be a deer, but I got really scared for a second because they picked up on something and they bolted. And but yeah, I know what you're saying. I was pretty nervous, and that's three pit bulls. There's not a lot of things that could send out three pit bulls.
No, I mean they have like these big like anaconda jaws and stuff and teeth, and their mouth looks like an alligator or a big, yeah, they are. And I have like a big female and.
We call them land sharks. That's what we call them. That's the nickname is land sharks.
And, I mean, really, my blue heeler is the one that's fearless. She will chase anything. She does not care. She, even people, and she's very businesslike. Like, if you're in my home, we call her the affection sponge, because she'll be all over you, like, love me, pet me, love me, pet me. that if you were to meet me out on the road when we're walking, she wouldn't want you to be within 10 feet of us.
Yeah.
She just will go for
Very
you,
protective.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But any time that, like, you know, all these that I've heard and seen, it's like she just acts like she's not even hearing it. It's so weird. That's why for a long time I kind of struggled, like, am I imagining things? But then, like, I'm not imagining, like, physical things happening, the physical evidence. But I couldn't understand why the dogs don't do anything. It's weird. It's like because if they see a deer, they're on it. You know.
Right.
And I think that's normal to think that you're imagining things because, and I've talked to Will on the phone on the show, and and him and I and Wes have a discussion about this, you know, prior to the show. I had to reaffirm that. Is this really happening? Did this happen, or did I dream this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think everybody asks themselves that question over and over again, and you're trying to come to terms with what you saw. And for most of us, it just wasn't in our frame of reference when we, you know, had that encounter. So it's always a question
talking
like,
to people.
Am I crazy?
Yeah, yeah, right.
Just backing up to the man that had the fence posts removed. I know you didn't want to ask a lot of questions, and it's completely understandable, but obviously you said, you know, they were pushed out toward the road instead of in as if a car had hit it. So there must have, I guess no one noticed any markings on there, like nothing hit those posts. Literally, they must have been pulled up or pushed over out of the ground.
It was pulled straight up, okay? Yeah. It was like the holes that the concrete was in was still intact. It was like something came and pulled it straight up and out. And I should have, looking back in retrospect, I probably should have taken pictures, but I kind of feel weird about taking pictures of people's property and, you know, like standing there like click, 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 you know, I mean, it's kind of creepy. But yeah, it was like literally something, and there were three of the fence posts, as I remember thinking, my God, what is this? Had literally just been, and the holes, you know, where they poured the concrete, it was still round, like something just went pull up and then out towards whatever it was that was pulling it out.
Well, we're running a little short on time, so Deidre, we really appreciate you coming on. Sure. And very interesting, everything you told us, detail-wise, fits right in with numerous encounters. So you're not imagining things, that's what's happening in your area.
Well, thank you for letting me talk because I just feel I feel like I'm getting a burden lifted off of me. I know that's probably sounds
keep in touch, and you know, we'll help out any way we can.
I will. In fact, if I see more footprints, I will be happy to send them to you, the pictures, so you can kind of see what's going on.
And I don't remember, did I send you pictures of any of the signs to look for?
No.
Okay, I'll do that, so you can keep your eyes open for some things there.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, thank you very much for having me on your show. I really do enjoy listening to it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Deidre. Yeah, thanks a lot, Deidre.
Okay. Well, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Well, for the third week in a row, we're having Bob Garrett back. We left everybody with a pretty good cliffhanger last week. Bob was about to tell us his scariest encounter, and knowing Bob, I'm sure it's a really good on the edge of your seat story. So without any further ado, we're going to have Bob Garrett.
How's everybody?
Hi, Bob. How are you this evening?
Oh, I'm good. We just had a bad storm, and so if you lose me, that might be part of the problem.
I think our listeners will string us up if we lose you.
Yeah.
We've been getting a lot of hate mail for making them wait the whole week.
Oh, well, I hate that. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess we can go right to it, Bob. Everybody's been waiting on the edge of their seat to hear about your scariest encounter with a female.
That happened to me and my son Travis about, I guess now it would be close to 16 years ago. We do a lot of work on the Lone Star Trail. And we had been getting reports this area that no one actually will stay and camp beyond the river and that trailhead that we went in on. So, like good little Sasquatchers, we decided that we'd go check it out. Well, while we were going down there, we had our packs on and everything, and, our tents were rolled up and on our packs and all of that stuff. And people were telling us, oh, you don't want to camp in that. You don't want to camp in there. You go right through that area. You don't want to camp in there. So, we kept on going, and it's about 6 miles down where we camped. And when we got up in there, well, it's a beautiful area. This starts one of the loneliest parts of the Lone Star Trail here in Texas. It is just beautiful. And right away we noticed that there's an abundance of game, lots of deer tracks, hog tracks. And we also noticed that there was persimmon trees, there was wild plum, there were, berries, grapes, and also we discovered that there is a spring that was bubbling up and went down about maybe 300-400 yards and went back down into the ground, which is kind of rare out here, But it was beautiful, and we went all the way down. We went all the way down to the San Jacinto River bottoms, and it was just totally beautiful. If I was a Sasquatch, or if I wanted to go out there and live, that's one of the places I'd probably go. So we came back in. Came back up to where we were going to camp, and it was a real nice spot. There was a little grove of pine trees, maybe about 9-10 inches around, and some a little bit bigger. And the trail crossed right past where our campfire was going to be and everything. And we set up our camp, and my son set up or laid out a really nice fire and everything, and we didn't light it right away because one thing I like to do is I like to let the darkness come on, and watch the stars come out and everything, and listen to the the night sounds and things of that sort. So that's what we did. We're sitting by near our camp. Near our tents. Well, we were watching the stars, and, you could hear the little birds and everything, going to sleep. They make little whistles and everything every once in a while in their sleep, and, it was all real good. And then the, forest got very quiet. And as it got quiet, we heard something behind us. And, as I said, there was a grove of little, pine trees on the side of us, which was actually the right side. And we had our tents right behind us, and then there was an opening behind our tents. It was very obvious that what was coming was bipedal, was heavy, and seemed to be having a little trouble walking. Well, all of a sudden, there was a roar from behind us. And we turned around real fast, and something was basically reaching through these trees, shaking these trees, and pulling them out. I got down on one knee. I have seen them hunt elk and deer, and I see what they do to them. And all I saw at that moment was these big hands coming from my head. And I got down on one knee. I had my shotgun, and I stuck that shotgun up in its midsection. And I was just pulling the trigger. I was within microseconds of pulling that trigger when it backed off. And when it backed off, it had a expression on its face not unhuman. And its eyes actually went up, or its eyebrows actually went up in surprise. I suppose it knew what that shotgun could do, and it backed off. But when it backed off, it began to pull those trees up, and it throw those trees down towards us. Also, it began to just scream bloody murder. And it screamed and screamed, and it went all around our camp and all around our camp and screamed and screamed. And it was throwing actual trees, knocking them down and throwing trees out at us. And it was throwing iron ore, rocks, because that used to be where they got a lot of iron ore at one time. And it was throwing these iron ore rocks and dirt and stuff at us. And this thing just was screaming like a crazy person or crazy thing, like it was just totally insane.
Yeah.
And it basically was having a meltdown. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of, was that this creature was having a total meltdown, that we were there. I watched my son's back as he lit the fire, and we were actually pulling trees up that it was throwing at us and putting it in the fire and burning them, as they went along, and we'd pull them up a little further and a little further, and we would keep small things in there to keep it all going and get some good coals and everything, and watching our back, watching where this.
Did we lose Bob?
So.
Yeah, we did, actually.
Oh.
Bummer. He was just getting into it, right?
I
Yeah.
know.
Must be that weather stuff he was talking about.
Yeah, he said he's been having some problems with his phone most of the night. I'll tell you what, let me give him a call real quick back, and if that doesn't work, we'll move on to Mike. We'll give Mike another shot, and then if that doesn't work, we'll figure something else out.
Okay.
Give me a second here. I'll try him one more time.
Okay.
Everyone here at Bigfoot Hotspot Radio would like to thank Audible.com. Audible.com is the internet leading provider of audiobooks with over 150,000 different titles to choose from. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audibletrial.com/Bigfoot Hotspot.
That's okay. We're happy to have you back. Hey guys, I got Bob again on the phone here.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Hey.
He's got some sort of storm action going on and being kicked off. It's kind of out of our control, but we'll do what we can here. So welcome back, Bob. Just kind of go ahead and leave off where you were, and we'll continue the show.
Okay.
Thanks for picking up this phone, and if you get kicked off again, I'll give you a call back. So here we go.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. What I was going to say was that the reason why I knew it was a female is because it looked way down at me. It had to bring its head way down because it's very tall. It had to bring its head way down, and I realized that I was seeing breast also. But that's how I found out or realized that it was a female. But she went on and on, just all around the camp, screaming, hollering, and carrying on. And I was not going to walk 6 miles back in the dark to the trailhead with that, behind my back.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, honestly, it wouldn't have been safe, and I wasn't sure how safe we were there. She eventually sat down out there at the edge of the camp, and it was like she just was bawling and screaming and having a total mental breakdown. And then she gets up, she goes on into the woods, and we could still hear her out there in the woods circling around and screaming, but it wasn't quite intense. This was later on in the in the early morning hours. But we had a bonfire going. I mean, believe me, everything she threw at us went into the fire. We had one big bonfire going. And I'll tell you what, we must have been in shock because we were sweating profusely, but we were having cold chills like it was wintertime. And it just kind of did something to us. I've never been able to forget it, and I have a lot of nightmares occasionally, about it from time to time. Not as bad as as in the beginning, but I didn't go and camp out in do any wilderness camping like that for almost a year. And even to this day, sometimes when I'm out there in the dark, I get butterflies in my stomach, and so does my son. And I don't mind telling anybody that I was petrified.
What do you think its intentions were when it was reaching through the trees at your head?
I think it meant to kill me. I fully think that it meant totally to kill me.
I wonder what had her so irate in that particular area. If it was just your presence or something else. I know there's really no way to know, but it makes you wonder if there was a young one around or one she couldn't find, or.
Well, we thought about, whether there was a young one, but I don't, I don't really think there was a young one. I think she was alone all this time.
Yeah.
We discovered that she was crippled. And we actually got prints of the crippled foot. And she would walk on the side of the foot with the toes tucked up underneath of her. And I don't know if it was a birth defect, maybe she got shot in the foot, or maybe it was to some type of injury or whatever, but I know that obviously gave her pain.
Yeah.
And that's what we discovered. And I think that was part of it, was the fact she was crippled and possibly, more afraid of us being out there than I can't say we weren't afraid of her, but that's kind of what we started coming to. And also, we did go back out there. And, we went out there with a full crew. And we started going back out there and putting up game cams and, trying to get a picture of her. Right. And she was in this area for a good 15 years. We would go back in there, about once a month to, once every couple of weeks. And she would let us know that, we knew, or she knew that we were there. And sometimes, she would throw something at us. She didn't have the meltdown again. Sometimes she would really get angry, and she would shake the bushes, the U-ponds, and everything out there. But she didn't real quick, she didn't like us leaving anything out there. And she eventually, tore the tree down that we were putting game cams on. But at that time, we were kind of experimenting, and my son would go out there, and we'd go out there too. But we started leaving things out there, like mostly dog toys, and we discovered that she actually liked the squeaky toys. She didn't the balls. She didn't take any of the stuffed bears or animals, like people say to do and everything. But what she did like, and she didn't take the shiny stones and the shiny marbles and all of that kind of, but she liked the squeaky toys that made, the squeaky sounds. She would break them, and she would bring them back and line them up, the ones that were broken, and we would replace them. And to me, that showed, a good bit of intelligence, of course, I don't know. I wondered if she was mentally ill, or if
that's very possible.
Yeah, because my wife's people say that they do have those problems sometimes. That's just kind of what we thought, was that she's possibly mentally ill. I don't think she ever had a mate out there. I don't think she ever had any young out there. She just lived in that spot. It was a good spot for her, and I guess it was easy for her to take care of herself. There was plenty to eat, year round. And when we would bring people in there, she didn't like it. She kind of accepted us going in there, but sometimes she got really mad when we would come in there. I don't know, how to put it, but my son would bring, new people in there, and she would just go ballistic, and so they would leave. And there were times when I would take my dog out there. I would, play with him and throw a ball or he likes to play rock. That sounds a little crazy, but I would toss a rock and he'll run, go get it and bring it back and stuff like that. And apparently that was very entertaining because she would sit out in the tall U-ponds and she would watch this, going on. And we knew she was there because occasionally we could smell her. And also we could see her, just inside the U-ponds. And we never really felt secure out there with her. And I would never stay out there again like that. We had kind of a rapport with her, I guess you might say on her terms, which, that's the way it usually would be anyway. The oil company came out there and they put in a road right across the trail. And they drilled a well out there. Well, that brought in a lot of backpackers because you could get there quick, easier. That brought in a lot of hunters. And she just one day was gone. And to this day, I have no idea if she passed or if she just left because of that, or which I presume she did, or what it was. Yeah, but she's no longer in there. But for 15 years, she was there, always. In 15 years, we saw her. She shot herself twice, and that was it.
It's she could have had some mentally wrong, like you said. But if she were injured at a young age, like in a trap or something with her foot, it could have just changed everything for her and made her be a loner type.
Some of the females seem to have a little bit of attitude. The few that have been reported and encountered. It sort of made me think about the old Bob Titmus story from Bluff Creek. Where he was out. Actually not far from where the Patterson Sasquatch was filmed. And he was out a little too late, decided that, he didn't want to get back to his camp. He'd fall and get hurt or whatever in the brush after dark, so he decided just to hunker down for the night and then head back to camp at first light. So he dug a shallow hole and covered himself with debris, all except for his face. And he kind of dozed on and off and woke up about 1 o'clock, he figured, and heard this. What he said sounded like a bulldozer coming through the trees, and it was sniffing the air. Apparently knew he was there but couldn't find him, and it screamed and tore the brush up, and finally left just shortly before daybreak. And he said that it looked like a bulldozer had gone through the timber. And when Patterson filmed the Sasquatch, about 3 years later, he said the tracks were identical. It was the same creature. So occasionally they will throw a tantrum like that and raise holy hell.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're on the receiving end of that tantrum,
it's not a good thing.
No, that meltdown that she had, it's still with us. But when I'm out there in the woods, out in the forest, and sometimes, I do get, like I said, the butterflies and kind of feel strange. I have to look, watch my back and everything. That comes back to mind. I've had nightmares about it, and it really did something to my son and I. I can't tell you how totally scared and afraid we were. Like I said, I think that we had gone into some sort of shock because, like I said, we were sweating, but we were shivering like it was 20 below zero or something out there. We, like I said, we did go back in there. We did do this with her. I don't recommend, I don't know. I mean, for a lot of people, I guess that's okay. I just don't actually recommend that because, if we didn't come in and replace them like she had wanted us to or whatever, we got pelted with sticks and everything, you know, all the way back out. and I don't know. I think it's kind of akin to you know, feeding a bear or giving, you know, a bear something, and they get used to it, and they, you know, they want you to continue with it. And when you don't do it, or you know, you mess up and don't bring anything to replace the broken with, then they get quite irate with you. And I think that's dangerous. Or, you know, with her, that was my experience. That was my first and only experience in actually exchanging or giving anything to a Sasquatch, and I'll never do it again.
Yeah, you know, that's kind of, it's very similar to what Coonbo and Bear were talking about too, you know, sort of warning against feeding them or doing things like that, because then they get to expect it, and when it doesn't happen, it really ticks them off.
Yes, it ticks them off badly.
Yeah, exactly.
But I totally had no doubt that she was going to kill me. I think she was going to pull my head right off, try to twist it backwards or whatever. Well, I was just going to say that's why I got down on one knee, because, you know, I have spent a lot of time in the wild, and I have seen them, you know, from time to time, and I have actually been blessed or whatever with seeing them hunt, and I've seen them hunt elk. And, man, they break their necks and put their antlers right into the dust. Takes them right out.
Yeah.
I mean, I have heard them kill deer. Actually, I've heard them kill them out here. It's very brutal. But I just didn't want to be on that receiving end. And I was really totally going to shoot her. And I'm glad that I didn't. But don't get me wrong, I would defend myself.
Hey Bob, for people that didn't hear, I believe it was last.
Do I?
You said you saw. Can you kind of describe what you saw as far as what it looked like? I know you said it had, you know, she had breasts. It was a female.
Yes, it was.
It sounds like you were very scared, and you were kind of like, we use the expression on the menu the whole time. But can you kind of describe it for some of the people that maybe didn't tune in last week on some of the things you saw?
Yeah, she had breasts, of course, you know, and she had womanly parts.
Yeah.
She was a typical black with the chronicle head. She walked on the side of her foot. She was extremely massive. I would say she was at least an 8-footer, maybe 7.5 to 8 foot. Had very massive legs, thighs, and arms and shoulders. When we got to see her, fully the 2 times, she had the wide mouth. She had very large eyes. She had a nose that was not unlike ours, but of course it was very large. And it wasn't really flattened or anything. She had small ears that came close to the sides of the head. And
couldn't make out the ears then, yeah.
Yeah, because she showed herself twice to us, and all that time, and I actually wrote down the description of what she looked like in my journals that I keep.
Right. When you went back, I forget. I think you already stated how long it was before you went back. But when you went back, did you have intentions to stay again overnight in camp, or were you just going back to see if she would,
no.
show up again?
God, no.
I didn't think so.
Actually, there had been rain. We went back looking for, specifically looking for footprints, because you have to know that area of Texas, and it's really hard to get footprints. And in this one area, like I said, they had at one time roads that came in there, and they iron ore from the area. And the trees had grown back up, and they'd done some plantings and stuff like that. And a little further down, there was what had been a quarry, I think, probably in the 1920s or something. The ground it's so hard because of the iron ore. and you could drive a dump truck through there, and if you didn't know what you were looking for, you would miss it.
Right.
So we went back in there because it was moist, and it dries out real fast. And we went back in there looking for tracks, and we were rewarded by finding her tracks. And actually, we had camped near her track line. And that was, I think, one of our first mistakes. Our biggest mistake was that we stayed out there, that we actually camped.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Well, it was bad. It was a horrible experience, put it that way. I mean, you know, I had experiences with them come out and look at me up north when I was, you know, panning for gold and things like that. I had one, you know, stand there and stare at me for nearly an hour, you know, across the creek from me. But this was just the most horrible experience. I can't say it enough. This was the most horrible experience I think I've ever had with a Squatch.
I think it would be right up there for anybody. It's probably the most horrible experience they could have.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I asked the question. Just for viewers, I didn't think you went back out there to camp, but I just figured we'd clear that up.
Okay. No, as a matter of fact, I won't camp out there now, and she's not there anymore. I know she's not. I won't camp out there now. I do when we go down that direction on the Lone Star Trail. I will go all the way up to where you come out. You pass the river. And it's several miles. You pass the river. It's very lonely country, but there's a pond out there, like a 5-acre pond, and you can turn off and go into that pond and actually camp in there and then go on, and that's what I do. You know, it's a good area, and there's so many frogs that you couldn't hear a Sasquatch scream if you wanted to. Yeah, I'm chicken. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I would be back. I don't think I would have went back to even look for the print after that night. So.
Well, it was hard to get back in those woods. Believe me, it was hard.
Yeah.
But I did go loaded for bears. As a matter of fact, I went down and I bought some black bear shot from my shotgun. Because I only had deer shot, you know, double-aught buck for, you know, deer. And I went down and bought some bear shot and loaded it with that before I went in. And I also had my 45 with me. And everybody else was armed. I was going to war if I had to.
Well, I think in that case, you know, you really, I don't think you can feel like you're armed enough, you know, after an experience like that.
No, because... I mean, they're so fast. And if it had not been for the fact that that line of trees had been, you know, on my right side where she was coming in at, she would have probably killed me. She probably would have killed my son. We probably would be a statistic right now, you know, disappeared.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
And I think that's the only reason why I had time to get on my knee and put that gun in her midsection and surprise her like that with that row of trees. And I thank God for that row of trees. But, you know, to this day, and it's been, you know, all these years, you can go out there and you can actually see some of the trees that she downed. They're rotting now. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this real quick. And I hate to recycle questions because I'm not a big recycler.
That's okay.
I asked this question on the last interview we had, and I'm going to ask you now because you said that you've gone out and you did some gold panning. I've done that myself. I find it relaxing. I like to do it. Have you found any, as far as like, do you think, well, how should I say this? Do you think that Sasquatches travel through the waterways as far as trying to be non-detected? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, I know for a fact that they do travel the waterways. I spend a lot of time up around the San Juan River and the Florida River, and they do travel those waterways. They actually get in the water and will move with it. And they do the same thing here in Texas, especially in the summertime. You will find them a lot around and in the water, especially moving water. But I have seen them, yes, travel the San Juan River before. And I believe that they
mentioned that with the old film, The Legend of Boggy Creek, where they said he always travels the waterways.
I don't really remember that. Honestly, I got to tell you something, guys. I didn't come out of the mountains till around 96, and
I can tell. No,
and everything was new to me. I mean, all the stuff from the 70s and 80s and 90s were. It was like watching. Yeah, it was brand new shows. TV was brand new. I mean, I haven't, honestly, guys, I haven't had a computer more than 6 years.
I was playing with you, man. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I
didn't hear that.
Hey, I get it all the time. I get it all the time. I can't. There's a lot of things I basically cannot do with a computer. And I told my kids, my sons and my daughter, when we got back, I mean, they just got right into it, They went right into the technology, learned everything, and did real well. But me, I stayed. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let me kind of back you up here because I kind of pulled you out. But here's the thing: I have more respect for people that are not completely
tech savvy.
Tech savvy. See, you overdid me there. That's cool. You're a great guest, and I think and everything you say comes true, and you can tell the emotion, and you can tell how true you are to what you're saying. I appreciate that. You get some people that come in here that repeat everything that they've read on the internet. You're not that guy. You're not that guy, Bob.
Well,
you know
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying so.
Come in here and retell stories about things they've read on the internet. I don't appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. You're doing really good.
As
far as let's go back to. He's great. Let's go back to kind of the waterways thing.
Okay.
And I know Will, you're kind of, because it kind of intrigues me because we're in the Pacific Northwest, and Bob, I don't know if you know much about the Pacific Northwest, but we have the Puget Sound, we have the Columbia River, we have Salmon Creek, we have all these different areas to where Bigfoot has been reported. And if you take someone like Will that is from the area, I mean, he could probably sit here for hours and tell you about the different interactions that we've had with Bigfoot on the Columbia River. So I know if you get down towards Carson,
oh good Lord,
what is it down there by Beacon Rock? What are some of the other ones? Stevenson is the other one down there.
Right.
Stevenson, Carson, and so you get down, and I think it's important that people realize that you get down on these river areas that that's one way I believe that Sasquatch / Bigfoot can travel without being tracked. And I think that's important that people realize that. Why, I don't know. I feel it's important. I'm kind of a dork.
Well, Renee, the always used to tell me to watch the waterways.
Right,
If anybody knew this, he knew it. And that's from way back in the beginning of all this, when the originals were digging into this and trying to figure out what they were doing. And it's always been very good advice.
I think so too. And
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ramona. What do you think about that?
I was just going to say, here in Kentucky, the reports that come in are almost always either near the lake areas or the Ohio and even other small tributaries. And there's just, the pattern is that they're almost always, any, reported sightings are almost always near rivers or, these lakes that we have in this area. So that just goes along with what you're saying, Woody.
Yeah, I think so. And Will, we've talked to you, like you're one of the first people that we've reached out to when we had our encounter.
Yeah, your encounter was pretty close to the
300 feet from where we were at, right?
Yeah, you guys are pretty close to the Lewis River.
Oh, right on the Lewis, 300 feet away. We could look down off the cliff and see the Lewis River. So,
and that Lewis River, there's accounts there to go back, to the 1840s that I know of. And I'm sure
as far as what? As far as what? People seen?
Yeah, I mean, and even stories, I mean, like, you know, a lot of people don't realize, like with the story of the miners that were attacked at the cabin in 1924 at Mount St. Helens. On their way there, that group of miners was hiking in along the Lewis River, and they would find tracks along the Lewis River. And, you know, whenever they'd be, you know, taking interest in them, the leader of the party would just kind of blow the whole thing off until it was, you know, of course they were attacked. And then it wasn't a laughing matter anymore, but they did find tracks often along that river. And there are places like Yacolt, for instance, the town of Yacolt, and I don't remember which tribe's language is that, or I think it's Chinook, but I'm not for sure. But the Yacolt,
I believe it's Chinook, yeah. I think
Chinook, yeah. Yacolt means haunted valley. And, and the Indians would not settle there because these creatures were known to be there. And there's quite a few little creeks and things around there.
And that's less than 10 miles from where we had our encounter, right? I mean, 10 miles from more north, or less, maybe.
Exactly. Copper Creek, some of those areas, lots of activity around those places. But a lot of it, you know, the Washougal River and the tributaries that flow into it. In fact, my second sighting was on the Washougal River.
Was it down there in the Washougal watershed area?
Yes, it was.
You know, a lot of people, that's when they have their sightings, is when they're, you know, fishing on the river or the rivers. And down here, a lot of people have their sightings at night down on the lake. And down, we have several rivers that come through here. And, you know, a lot of people will fish those rivers. And they have, you know, a lot of their sightings along these rivers. That's because they congregate along the rivers. And they use them for trackways. I
think it's a lot more common than people realize.
Yeah. Well, it's not just, you know, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Bob, and we're getting kind of short on time, guys. We have about 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes left. But what I wanted to say is Wes and I had kind of had this conversation 2 days ago or something like that. I really don't believe that you have 10, 15, 20 miles deep in the thick of the woods in the middle of nowhere to see a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Wes and I were just outside of the town of Battleground, and we saw one, you know. So I don't think it's a matter of, like, how far you can get in the woods, how deep you can get into the woods. I really feel that a Sasquatch is closer in than what we really realize. And I think if people really knew that, they would be a lot more concerned today.
Yeah.
I think
you're
they'd be more
perfectly
concerned
right
about it than what they are.
Well, you know, and
what are your guys' thoughts on that? We got about 4 minutes left.
Kind of goes along with, you know, the thing with a lot of wild animals. You know, humans are kind of easy pickings for food because we're sloppy and we leave lots of stuff around. You know, I'm sure there's that factor also. You know, that whatever they can come in and get things easily and easy meals, whether it's a garden or animals or whatever's around. So that's got to be a draw too.
Well, you're totally right about that.
100%. Yep.
Yeah, down here we have a development that's been developing for the past 40 years, and it's just really eaten up habitat. And that's one reason why we are getting so overrun in the Sam Houston National Forest. Their corridor goes into this area, but even to this day, right now, as modern as it has built up out there, and this is the Woodlands, Texas, we still get reports from people who live close to the more wilderness areas, as well as law enforcement and security guards and construction workers who have to go in there, you know, just around daylight to, you know, start their job. They have them actually come out of some of the big buildings.
Good Lord. That's got to be a little unnerving. What a way to start your day, huh?
Yeah, I know. But that's why it's filling up so much here, and that's why the past few years it has been so hot in this area, or such a hot spot in this area. And then you have the ones that have always lived there. And, you know, it's kind of, we have audio of a big fight. And we didn't, you know, try to get up there and film or anything like that because we tried to stay away from it. But it was a hell of a vicious fight. You could tell females were fighting, males were fighting. It was pretty bad.
Good Lord. Well, we're going to have you back on to talk about that again sometime. Well, we're running out of time, so I guess we better wrap it up before the system kicks us all off here. So, Bob, thanks again for coming on and telling the stories. And Ramona and Woody, we're sure glad to have you back, or Woody back and Ramona on.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Bob.
Thank you, Will, for holding my seat. I appreciate it.
You bet you, man.
I appreciate
very
you
much.
back. Yeah, and it was nice talking to you too, Bob. You're great, and Ramona.
Well,
I'm sure.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
You guys are great too, and I appreciate you having me on. It's fun.
Well,
and
we sure like having you on anytime, Bob.
All right.
Yeah, great.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And we had Bob on the phone, and next week we'll try to get Mike on the phone next week. And
I think it's like you said, his phone must have died or something. And well, thanks everyone. Join us again next week for the show, and that's it for this week.
Good night, guys.
And it's actually been kind of zoomed in, and it's one of those videos where someone's driving through the woods and he's filming. I don't know if they're actually out. I don't think it's actually Stephen Martin. He just posted it to our fan page. But it's a pretty cool video. When you look at it, I showed it to Woody. The headlights hit this figure in the tree line, and it kind of looked like King Kong standing in the tree line. I mean, what did you think, Woody, when you saw it?
It really creeped me out, actually.
There's another Grant Douglas. He had posted one. It was a skunk ape that was out in the Florida swampland, and it's actually a pretty good video too. I'm not really sure what to think of that. I don't know if it's an escaped like ape out there running around. That's kind of what it looks like, but it's kind of in a weird area.
Apparently there was something that was escaped at one point. I don't know if that's recent or a while ago, but I know some people were claiming that on some videos. I really don't know without seeing it.
Yeah, I'll forward it to you. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good video. It's the backside of what appears to be a really, really large ape. Mm-hmm. But could it be a Sasquatch? It could be. I mean, it really could be. It was a good it was a good video. And I know John Switzer, he had posted one that IMAX actually caught when they were out there filming the Big North or the Great North documentary, and they caught this black thing running across the plains. And Thinker Thunker, the guy that does Thinker Thunker, he actually did a pretty good analysis of that video. He kind of broke it down to the size, and he took some of the size comparison of the different wildlife that were in the area and kind of matched it up with. If you get a chance, check it out. It's on our fan page. I know John Switzer posted that one with the IMAX. They caught it by mistake, and then I don't know what. It's one of those moments where I don't think they really knew what to say, what it was, or It kind of appears to be a huge. Looks like King Kong running across the plains is what it looks like. A lot of these videos, they're kind of at a distance, and so I know everyone's looking for that real upfront, close HD video, but these are good videos. I mean, these are some of the better ones I've seen, I think.
One that we watched, Wes, earlier, the thing that really caught my eye is, so the camera is panning from, I believe it's a right to a left, and then everything's slowed way down. So you hear the audio is slowed down, you hear everything, the video is slow, you see the video that's slowed down, and then all of a sudden, boom, there it is. You know what I mean? I don't know. They either did a really good job at faking it, or there's possibly something there. I don't know, man. All in all, it's a pretty good video, man. I will say it looked really, really good.
It was a good video, and I want to thank Stephen Martin for sending that to us. If everyone gets a chance, go check it out on the fan page. And one thing I was going to send over to both you guys for us to look into, Richard Raymond, sure I slaughtered his last name. Not that you can slaughter Raymond, but anyway, he had sent us this message talking about a firefighter that disappeared out there in California near Fillmore. And he talked about this firefighter that just up and disappeared. The dogs won't track him. It's like he vanished, and no one knows where he's at. So I was going to send that over to you, Will. I'll send it over to you, Woody. Have you guys take a look at it. Maybe we can look into that.
I know a fire captain here in this part of the state, so he may know something about that.
Yeah, we should look into that. Find out what happened to this guy. I guess dogs won't track him. I guess they went out there with search and rescue, and dogs won't track this guy, which is usually red flag number one for,
it is.
So. But that's all I got for you guys. I was thinking maybe Ramona next week. We could have Ramona on. She could give us an update on the news and fill us in on some stories that are out there. I think having 4 people on there is almost too much. And maybe people don't want to hear me anymore. Maybe Ramona will take my spot. But, I was thinking maybe we, find a role for on the show. But who do we have coming up, Will?
Well, we have Michael and Raymond tonight. I don't really know much about Michael's accounts. He didn't really say he wanted to just come on the show and talk about them. But Raymond has, and I know, the BFRO started this, what I call a typical and an atypical account. Your account, you and Woody's account, and my first one are atypical, which means, as opposed to typical, and when I'm using that term means that about 70% of Sasquatch sightings are on or near roads. You know, somebody's driving along, the thing runs across the road, or we're standing next to the road, or something like that. Not that any Sasquatch account is, you know, quote unquote typical, but since that's sort of the preponderance, that's why I'm using that reference. And Ray has one account like that, one account's very atypical. So his stories are pretty interesting. I don't really know about Mike's, but I guess we should bring him on and see what he has to say.
Pleasure to meet you, gentlemen. Thank you. And I apologize for last week. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no apologies, Mike.
Oh, well, yeah. When I say something, I keep my word. It's just the medicine took over, and I was out like I don't know. I was out.
No, not sweat. Not sweat at all. We appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
So you've had a couple of accounts, is that right?
Yes, I did. Well, when I found out that you were from Ording, it didn't immediately, but it really drew my attention that I wanted to get a hold of you to begin with to find out where your sightings were, but I'm getting a little tongue-tied now. Anyways, I live in Ording. I've lived in Ording, Puyallup, Tacoma, Washington my entire life. I'm 50 years old. Do you want me to tell you what happened, or do you guys want to ask questions?
Yeah, well, let's start out with your first account.
Okay.
Tell us, kind of, how the day started out, what sort of led into the events that happened.
Okay. My first account was in November of 2004. I lived in a community called the Buttes, which is in Ording, Washington. Right. And I don't know how long it's been since you do, so you're familiar with the big hill as you go up the hill.
Right.
And then if you're heading up the hill, which is heading east, on the left-hand side, which is north, there's a huge soccer field. Right. It's about 5-6 acres wide. I mean, it's a pretty big piece of land owned by the Kiwanis, where they do the fireworks every year.
Yeah, right.
But anyways, I've worked swing shift or night shifts my entire life. One day I was leaving for work. It probably was about 11:30, 11:45. And as I'm coming down the hill, I look off to the right down in the soccer fields. I don't know why, but I did. And I see this black thing sitting there, and I thought, well, maybe it's what I think is a bear as I'm coming down the hill. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I kind of pull over on the little turnout, and it's it's a ways away from me. I'm guessing. I can't guess right the distance. It was a little ways, but close enough to where I could see. Anyways, as I pulled my truck over to take a look at it, because what I really was going to do is pick up my cell phone and call the Ording police, because about noon, the kindergartners get off at the bus there. And I didn't want any of the kids getting off the bus if that bear was sitting out there. I have concealed weapons. I mean, I would have helped out, but I just didn't want any of the kids hurt, and I had to get going to work. Anyways, as I'm calling the Ording Police Department, this thing took off across the field. It was like hunched down on all fours. It went across that soccer field and covered the distance of that soccer field. Before the phone even rang a second or third time, it covered a distance. I thought I was seeing something move that fast, and I'm sorry, I'm nervous. Anyways, so I didn't think much about that account. That's not even the account that I'm calling on. 2 or 3 days later, I came home from work one night. Every night I got home anywhere between midnight to 3 in the morning. And we had lived in this particular house about, I don't know, a year, maybe give or take a month or so. And where our house was up in the development, we were backed up to the green belt at the end of the cul-de-sac. And after we moved in shortly thereafter, we had this little herd of deer, this mom deer and this fawn deer that would literally come around every night. We got so used to one another, I would feed them every night. I literally would stop at the grocery store, buy apples, carrots, anything I thought a deer would eat. And they would come by every night like clockwork. Every night I came home, I'd go outside and feed them. It was really cute. In fact, I got pictures of us feeding them. They wouldn't eat out of our hand, but they got really close. That said, I could never get them to come into the backyard because it was fenced. I'd have to go out, open the gate, feed them, and they would come and get their food. And we could never get them to come inside the gate. One night I came home, it was around Halloween. I went outside like normal, and when I went outside, when I go outside, I'd always have a cigarette, and I'd bring my dog out so she could use the bathroom. This particular night, my dog would not go outside. I mean, I couldn't drag her to go outside. She was really whiny. She just didn't want to go outside, and I really found that odd because she would follow me anywhere. So anyway, I had to go outside, open my gate, drop the apples down, put the carrots down, and probably about a minute, maybe 2 after I had opened the gate and dropped the apples and carrots down, the mom deer, her or a year, because we already been there about a year. The fawn from the previous year and the new fawn, they came straight into the backyard. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. I thought it was cool. I didn't think anything of it, that they would come into the backyard. But they not only came into the backyard, it was like they were trying to get through to go to the front yard, if that makes any sense. And I'm like,
right.
So, and you could tell there was something bugging them. I mean, it was obvious because the mom, or I don't even know what that's called, but the mother of the two deer, she was just panicked because I think she could have jumped the fence if she wanted to or gone over it, but she wouldn't. She was just really panicked. And they stayed as close to the front of the fence as possible. They wouldn't even go back towards the backyard where the opening of the gate was. Do you have any questions, or should I just keep going?
Go ahead.
Okay. So anyways, and same thing. I didn't think much of it. I sat back there for a little bit, walked back inside, and I kept looking out the back window because my downstairs living room faced in the back to see what the deer were doing. And they stayed put. They would not do anything. So after I got situated, I went upstairs, took my clothes off, got into my shorts that I sleep in, and did my business, brushed my teeth. And as I walked over, after I got done brushing my teeth, I walked over to the window was to see what the deer were doing. And I looked down to the right, and one of the mother deer was no longer back there, but the 1-year-old fawn and the little fawn was still back there. It just bothered me. It didn't bother me. It made me wonder what happened. So I'm sitting there looking, and I look to the right, back into the wood line, where, like I said, we're backed up to a green belt, which is heavily treed and whatnot, but between my back fence and the tree line, it's about a 20 to 30 yard distance from where they had just graded it, where it was just like gravel, dirt, and then the tree line. And so I look back there, and over to the right, and I'll also say it, that's what I saw. It was a reddish brown colored. My hair standing up on my arms talking about it because it really gave me. I don't scare easily, put it that way, but it freaked me out. As I'm looking out my window, it was standing probably 30 yards back to the right in the front of the tree line. And as I'm looking down at it, and I swear to you, it's looking right at me. It gives me the creeps even talking about it. It's looking right square at me. I don't even know what else to say. Like I said, I'm nervous. When I was talking to him on the email, you guys had asked your questions from there. I'm sorry, I don't get nervous that easy, but I am right now. It just kind of freaks me out talking about it.
When you bring back, to the forefront of your thinking an account like that, it's pretty easy to relive it.
Right.
You mentioned, you saw this thing in 2004 out in that particular area, and what month was that, by the way?
It was maybe a month or so earlier than that. I remember it was just the time of year when it just started to get foggy, and
probably springtime.
No, it was prior to Christmas. I know it was prior to Christmas.
Oh, in the fall, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, in the fall.
2 times a year it does that around there.
Here's the funny thing is, when we very first moved into that house, it was September, somewhere thereabouts. And like I said, I always go in the backyard to smoke, and I was smoking in the house. I don't smoke anymore, by the way. I always had a feeling there was something on the backside of the fence, and I'd open it, there'd never be nothing there. So one day I stopped and bought a salt lake, and that's how I think I started getting the deer coming in the habit of coming in there. But I went back there, and I swear I found a footprint. So I went to work and talked to one of my buddies who's an avid hunter. In fact, he had shot a bear up there, a few years earlier before the development had went in. And I asked him, I asked him if he had ever seen anything funny out in the woods. And so he was the first person I told my story to. And I don't want to say he laughed at me. Yeah, he did laugh at me. He's my buddy. He said, you're full of I can't say. He said, you're full of them. Like, that's not up there. There's a key point that I'm missing here, though.
That's a funny area. People really, really won't talk about it in that area for some reason. I'm just,
right.
I lived in Oregon until I was about 8, and then we moved out.
Right.
I grew up in Graham, up near Thrift, and that's where I had my first sighting. And I'm still, to this day, new people, that were living in the area will contact me and say, Will, I saw these creatures. The same thing.
Right.
Lots of people have saw them.
Mike, when you were sitting there looking out your window, how far away was the creature from you? And can you kind of describe what you saw?
Yeah, how far was it away from me? Yeah, that's a good one. I would say less than 30 yards or less, 30 yards at absolute tops. I was looking down in the south. I would have been looking southeasterly. What did it look like? It had like an auburn brown colored hair. Here's what it reminded me of it. Look, as soon as I saw it, it had like a football player in a helmet, with a no neck. It was kind of facing me at an angle. Shoulders, unless you see them, you can't, I don't want to say, you can't describe the mass of the shoulder and its body unless you see it. Because I tried to tell my wife the story too. And same thing. And I got to, this is the key point. I used to drink really heavily. And Wes, I'm going to change the subject here for a second. Wes had a posting on the Facebook page, the Hotspot, about how he should go underneath hypnosis for his encounter. When I went and quit drinking, I went medically and got treated here in Seattle at a hospital. And as part of the treatment, they gave you sodium pentothal treatments. And I don't know if you know what sodium pentothal is, but it's the stuff they give you to, they give it to you. They give it to you because they ask your subconscious, if you were to leave today, what's the likelihood if you would drink? Because supposedly underneath that, you can't lie or tell a story. But anyways, the treatments on those are 20 minutes. And you can have anything asked of you after your treatment that you want. So I wrote my little question down about my sighting in the buttes. And I recited the story verbatim underneath sodium pentothal, just to make sure that I wasn't seeing something in the event maybe I had been drinking or whatnot. And I never drank to the point where I was obnoxious. I just drank every night and finally realized I had to quit. But anyways, I thought the key point that I did, I recounted the whole encounter underneath sodium pentothal as I would telling anybody the story, which, like I said, I've only told a few times. But getting back to the size of the creature, looking down at it because I was on the top story, my guesstimation, it's hard to judge. I'm guessing it was about 8, maybe 9 feet tall. It could have been taller because I was looking down at it. The way the moon hit it, it cast a shadow to the left going north. That doesn't matter. 600-700 pounds. I mean, its body was as deep, as thick, almost as it was wide. Absolutely positively no hair on the face whatsoever. The hair on the body, I'm just going to say 2 inches, maybe 1.5 inches. I don't know. A little bit longer on the hair going back towards the side of the left shoulder because that's the way he was facing me. It almost looked like a guy that has long hair. It was almost like it had a little bit longer hair on its head in proportion to the hair on its body. And it had the face of a man, and the eyes didn't glow, none of that. But the eyes were, it had a really, really thick eyebrow or brow ridge. Eyes were huge. Not huge. Yeah, they were huge. And it was really, really kind of hard to make out the nose because of the way of the angle it was sitting in the night. Because the sun, you couldn't see the whole part of the face, only like half of it. But all I know is, to me, it looked like a man. Its face, it was very human-like features in the face.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. I've heard that before. When you look at them, like when we saw the one that walked across the road, I remember just thinking that just reminded me of a giant walking across the road. But they do have that, and I don't know if it's something in our heads that we kind of place a human, when you look at something like that. Just for clarification, I actually have gone through hypnosis. I think one of the, on the fan page, one of the, a listener had suggested that Woody and I do that, which I'd be open to it.
That's what I was referring to. I saw that on the fan page yesterday, and I wrote my little spiel about the sodium pentothal. But that's why it was important for me to have one of that asked me of that. I mean, that wasn't the only thing. It was a 5-day session where they do that. So you ask a lot more stuff, things that have to do with your life and stuff. But that was important to me because I had to know myself whether I was seeing something or because honestly, I've always believed in Bigfoot.
I think everybody second guesses themselves.
Yes. Will, you just nailed it. You nailed it. Well, I was just going to say that. It was like, hey, Mike, don't feel bad about that because
it's common.
It's very common. I mean,
well, the thing is I've always believed in it. So you hear that. Well, if you believe in something, you're going to manufacture it in your head or something. I don't know. I've always believed in it. And the reason I believed in it was camping at a lake in the above Alder Lake. It was called Duck Lake. It's an alpine lake above Alder.
Right.
And there were some things that happened up there when we were kids, because I've heard some of the shows where they say how logs would be put across the roadway. I remember back when we were kids, we would always
activity up there.
Yeah, I remember going, after hearing this on your show a couple times, I remember going there camping, and we'd go in there for 3 or 4 days. And when we'd come out, there'd be these huge logs along the roadway. It's like, where the hell did these come from? One time we went to just to do some sightseeing. In the couple hours we were gone, there was logs across the roadway. And, of course, back then, I didn't think anything of it. It was just like, we'd cut it up, throw it in the back of the truck, go burn it. But, after listening to your show, it's just, maybe that's what it was. Who knows?
Hey, yeah, that area is sort of the backside of Clear Lake and the Bald Hills.
Right.
And, when we had Lupe Mendoza, his son, when he was on the show, he was talking about his son hearing screams up at near Clear Lake and the Bald Hills. And that area is also, of course, close to Yelm and then Fort Lewis. Big area of activity up there. Did you have any other encounters or?
Visuals. One night I was coming up the hill, because like I said, I'd always come up at night. As me and my wife were driving up one night after we went to the movies, I swore I saw a man standing on the top of the hill, but it could have been a man. Nothing I would tell a story about, but
sure.
There was things just in that area. And then another thing, there was always, every other couple of days, there was always a missing dog posted to where the bank mailboxes were. There was always missing dogs. And there was always flyers posted that bears were posted with that.
I remember seeing signs around that area with missing dogs, and I thought, geez, there's an awful lot of missing dogs, but it never really clicked.
Right. In fact, there was even signs at the mailboxes, because behind the buttes is what they called, there was a walking path where people ran and jogged. Right. They put signs saying stay off, because they thought someone had claimed they had saw a bear back in there. So they put signs, do not go there, or do not run by yourself. And even after that, I could not get my dog to go in the backyard. The only place she would go down the front yard to do her business, and that was if somebody was with her. And she was pretty courageous, good dog, best dog I've ever owned. But her whole behavior changed, period, from that point on. And then after we left that place and came down to the valley, she went back to her same old self.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
It's disturbing to run into these things when you're out in the woods, or when you're out hiking, or when you're out enjoying the wilderness. But to be sitting in your living room looking out the window, and it's 30 feet away or 30 yards away, that's like 100 times more disturbing.
That's a little unnerving.
I didn't want to go down and watch TV downstairs. In fact, I didn't. I stayed upstairs and watched TV. And once again, it's not that I scare easy. I'm not Billy Bad Butt. It just freaked me out. And I'm not embarrassed to say it freaked me out, but I guess I am, because I don't know. Yeah, it spooked me out. That's for sure.
Have you seen anything else on the property since you've had this encounter?
Well, we moved shortly thereafter. We were out of there probably less than 6 months after that. Fortunately, we're ahead of the housing crunch. Sold the house and ended up buying one down in the valley. And I just told my wife it's because she wanted to get off the hill, hit the ice. So after that, no, I really didn't. Honestly, I didn't. And in fact, it's funny. Every time I drive over the bridge coming into Oregon, going over the Carbon and the Puyallup, I always look both ways just to see maybe if I might glimpse something. In fact, I went down there once the show started and started walking to see if I could, find signs. And that's what I was emailing Will about. Is there something I should look for? And the more I thought about this, I don't want to bump into one of these things again. I don't.
I'll send you some pictures anyway, so at least you'll know if they're around.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
it's not that often they come down through there, because there's so many more people now than there used to be.
Right.
They do still come around.
Well, here is, I guess, a cliff note. My daughter's good friend, where the old fish hatchery is going out of town?
Yeah, right. Out of King
She lived about a block from there, 2 blocks from there. I shared my story with her and my daughter one night. And my daughter, because she believes in stuff like me, Bigfoot and all that. And I thought they were going to both laugh at me. Her friend, her eyes got big, glossy, her mouth dropped.
There's still not a lot of people out that way.
Yeah, and she says, I know exactly what you're talking about. And as we started talking about what we saw, we were finishing each other's descriptions of what we've seen. Because she lived there her whole life up next to that hatchery. And she said she'd seen it multiple times. And we literally were describing what we saw. I would say one thing, and we were literally finishing each other's statements as the conversation went on, which I kind of thought was kind of vindicating, I guess.
Yeah, I really wish more people would come forward from that area, because I know there have to be a ton of sightings in that area, because of things from the pieces I've gotten from people all around, from Graham, Eatonville, all the way down, to South Hill. There has to be a lot more.
Right. Now, well, do you think these are like the kind of Wes and Woody saw? I mean, the ones they described, I mean, I don't know how they didn't not mess themselves. I mean, those sound scary. Do you think it's the same family, same, line?
Probably the same group that I encountered.
Right.
Because West and Woody are about 120 miles south. That's a different group.
No, I understand that, but the way they describe their aggressiveness, that was the first show I listened to, and from then I was by the way, you guys have the best show, hand down, TV, radio, movies, and I listen to them all now. There's not even somebody close second to your guys' show, and I swear on my kids on that.
Oh, thanks.
Aggressiveness is a lot more common than people think it is.
Yeah.
And that's pretty typical with primates anyway. It's not, flute players, people think they're, are forest giant buddies and all that. That's nonsense.
Right.
They're first and foremost, they're wild animals.
Right.
And as you know, there aren't any real friendly wild animals.
I was going to say, thanks for the nice comments about, definitely thank you for the comments about the show.
Oh, no, I thank you guys because, everybody I talk to that is into this, I refer you guys because you're credible. I don't know. It speaks for itself. I mean, you've heard the other shows, and I'm not saying they're all garbage. The gentleman that was on the show last week that's down in Texas, I like his show as well, but he's still not even a close second to you guys.
Well, we appreciate that, Mike.
No problem. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, we're certainly glad you came forward with the story. We sure appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it, and if I got nervous, I do apologize. If it doesn't sound good for the air, I understand. I don't know why I get nervous.
No, Mike. If it wasn't for people like you, we wouldn't be able to have a show like this. So what it comes down to is people like you and the listeners. So really, I should be thanking you more than anything.
I appreciate it. Pleasure's all mine. And can I ask you one other thing? When you guys go hunting for these mounds, if somebody pays to go along, could they go?
Mike, you can tag along. You don't have to pay.
I'm all over it. I'd love to. Love to.
Just keep in touch, and the next time I go to one of those locations, I'll let you know, and you're more than welcome to come along.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate your time, William, Wes, and Woody. I really do.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right, guys. Take care. Thank you. God bless.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good night.
Bye. You too. Bye.
It was a good account. It's hard to describe the emotions. It's hard to put those into words. I know what he's talking about when he's talking about how scary he was, and he's trying to describe how big it was. And that's the hardest thing that I remember I had was putting what you saw into words without it sounding ridiculous. You don't realize.
Yeah, it's really hard to relate to somebody. I used to think, the big male that I saw, the first one, I used to think, Jesus, how am I going to tell people how big this was? They're going to think I'm crazy. And that was my buddies, that had seen tracks and things. And, but yeah, they're enormous.
I remember telling,
not just the width, but the thickness.
Yeah, the thickness. I remember telling my girlfriend the other day, I said, it's not the same if you think if you take a person and make them 9 feet tall. I remember that's what I used to think when people would talk about these encounters. I would think, okay, well, if you took me, I'm 6 foot, you made me 9 feet tall, that's basically what people saw. And it's not even in the same ballpark as far as what people, the massiveness and I never, as soon as he hit the shoulders and he was kind of having a hard time finding words for it, it's almost like it took me back to mine and Woody's encounter. It's like I could understand exactly, I could almost put myself in his position trying to find the words to describe what you saw. And that's the hardest thing is trying to describe what you saw.
Well, let me tell you fellas something. When you're 4'7" like me, pretty much everybody's bigger than you. So I'm joking.
I'm practically a Sasquatch compared to him. I put Woody in my pocket.
Yeah, Wes is.
We walk around the woods,
Yeah. Well, I'm as wide as I am tall, so it is what it is. But
I thought Mike did a good job.
Yeah, he did an awesome job, man.
Mike was good.
Job.
I sure appreciate when people enjoy the show. Like Mike was saying, I sure appreciate stuff like that because, there's a lot of effort that's put into the show. And
yeah, it really was.
Well, who do we got next?
Well, the next person is Raymond. And as I mentioned earlier, Raymond has had 2 encounters. One when he's very young, and it was a very atypical or an unusual type of encounter. And like I mentioned, also the typical encounter, which is, the majority of sightings are on or near roads. So that was his second encounter. Hi, Ray. This is Will.
Hey, Will.
We were on here with Wes and Woody.
Uh-huh.
So we'd like to talk to you about your encounters.
Hey, Ray. How are you?
I'm good. Let me go outside here. Well, let my dog out. I'll stay inside and let him out. Okay.
Well, let's start off with
so much
the first encounter that you were telling me about last night. You were pretty young when that happened.
Yes.
So tell us about that first.
Okay. Like I said, my mother made my older brother and me some peanut butter crackers. And my older brother and I were pretty competitive. And we had a playhouse built onto the back of our garage. And about 20 feet from that is the beginning of what used to be a cow pasture, which turned into woods. And there was a creek back there. Well, I get up about 6 o'clock in the morning to go get those peanut butter crackers that we didn't finish. I thought I'd get them before my brother did, or he would hog them all, because he's bigger. I'm walking back there along the edge of the garage in my backyard. And, it's kind of dark, not real dark. I mean, the sun's starting to come up. And I hear a noise over to my right. And I kind of glance over there, and I come back. Because I was kind of scared, it's dark. And all of a sudden, this big giant creature come out of my playhouse. I mean, it was huge. Like I said, my stepdad was 6'6", and this thing made him look tiny. I mean, it was big. But okay, did you ever watch Bugs Bunny when you was a kid?
Sure.
Okay, the alien the alien, he had a creature that looked like a big old hairy heart.
Right.
Okay, when I got through talking last night, I forgot to mention that. That's what I kind of compared him with, because the heart part, the top part, that was the shoulders. Except this creature, you didn't have a head on it. But that's how every time I saw that, I thought about the Bigfoot, my Bigfoot encounter. It kind of brings back memories there. But anyway, as it stepped out sideways, facing me. I screamed, and nothing came out of my mouth. I just froze. It just I couldn't even move. I was just done. If he wanted to eat me, pick me up, or it could just backhand me and knock me 20, 30 feet probably, or whatever, if it wanted to. But it didn't. And it kind of grunted or snorted. And then all of a sudden I heard another noise. And I looked back at him, and he was already going over the fence. That's how quick he moved. I mean, it was just real fast.
Ray, how old were you when this happened?
I was probably around 6, maybe 7, about 6 or 7 years old, 6 and 7, between 6 and 7.
And what part of the country was that?
Okay, the address, it was 1212 South 12th Street. It's the only address like that in the world.
What state was it?
Texas.
Texas. Was that East Texas by chance?
Yes, East Texas.
The reason I asked is that's kind of the area Bob Garrett, who was on last week, that's where he's had a lot of his encounters.
Yeah. Well, I had 2 encounters there in East Texas.
Okay. Well, tell us about the second one.
Okay. The second one, me and 2 of my friends, we were out behind Texas Eastman. That's Eastman Kodak out there in Texas. I was out back on the road. It's an area which, growing up, it was called Tally Bottom. As they say, I always said it was a place you don't want to be there at nighttime because bad things happen out there. Well, anyway, me and my friend Hollis and his cousin, we went out there fishing, hanging out. There's a little section out there. It's an iron bridge, and that's what we called it, Iron Bridge. That's all I ever knew it was called, was Iron Bridge. And one way is facing west, and there's about, 50 yards away across the water there's a railroad track. Anyway, we'd sit on there, and we'd cast our rod and reel out there and, go fishing. Well, it was getting late, starting to get around 6 o'clock in the evening, starting to get dark. And so we decided we better leave because we don't want to be there when it gets dark. And we get in my car. I was like 16 or 17 at this time because I was driving. There's only one way. It's like a one-way dirt road. I mean, it's like 2 miles. You can see like 2 miles straight down the road. That's how flat it was. And we're driving, going, starting to take off, going slow, just talking. And all of a sudden, there's a big old thing was in the middle of the road walking towards us. I mean, it was huge. It was probably like 150, 200 yards away from us. It was walking right towards us in the middle of the road, the dirt road there. And Hollis looked at me, and I looked at them. We're like, that's something we've never seen before. This is huge. I mean, it's big old hairy thing, And Hollis had one bullet left in his, for his 22, and he loaded his gun up. And his cousin Lynn sitting in the back seat, he pulls out his pocket knife. I said, "Look, y'all ready?" I punched it. That's the only way out of there was where that thing was. So I floorboard it, and it's coming up toward us, and we're walking, and all of a sudden it just kind of flares off and just walks over a barbed wire fence into the woods and disappeared. And we were scared, man. That was I'm getting flustered about it, but it was we were scared. We were, it was huge. It was brown, like a two-tone brown, and you just had hair. It was like maybe 6 inches of whatever length or whatever. It was big, but that's that story there. Now my other one, when I was little, it looked right at me, and I looked at it. I went in and told my mom and my stepdad there that I said I saw a monster. I'd never seen anything, never heard anything about a Bigfoot or whatever, and I don't even think I ever saw a gorilla. And I just said I saw a monster. That's the only thing I could say. And they looked at me and said, "You was having a nightmare. Go back to bed."
Yeah. So they just kind of brushed it off.
Yeah.
Well, don't feel bad. I know you were 6 when you said you saw a monster. I was in my 30s when I said I saw a monster, so I went through the same thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. The only way I could describe it was I saw a monster, I saw a monster, I saw a monster. And that's
I think that's a pretty accurate description.
Yeah. But, what was weird about it is I was like, I hear stories and whatever about, like a friend of mine was telling me about how they people going out camping and their kids come up missing and they'd find them 2 or 3 miles away. They'd say where the Bigfoot had grabbed them and took them away. I was like, they could have done that to me or whatever. I don't know, but, it's just weird. It didn't even touch me. But it looked at me, and it grunted. And, like I said, it could have done anything it wanted to. It was huge. This thing was big. It came out sideways. It was just so big. His shoulders were so – that's what I'll never forget, his shoulders.
Yeah.
When he came out of that, it was just weird.
Yeah, kind of like one of them crackers. Were the crackers you had, were they in the playhouse?
Yeah, they were in the play. No. When I got in there, when I went back outside, I didn't. It was way daylight before I went back out there. But no, they were gone.
Okay, so that's probably why the thing was in the playhouse. That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. You could smell. You could smell peanut butter. And especially in the small this little storage room, which was converted into our playhouse. It was just a little bit bigger than a closet, probably. It was like maybe 5 or 6 feet wide by like 8 feet deep or something like that, maybe.
Huh.
But there was 2 of them there. There was one over to the right. That's what got my attention. That's what I always thought about that. Was but I hear stories. But it was weird. I looked. What got my attention was I heard a loop, loop, and I looked to the right, and I could see something was there, but I don't know what it was. This was in the woods, just right at the corner of the fence on the other side of the barbed wire fence. And there was what we call a privet hedge. I always wondered about that, but then I saw something here a couple weeks ago that reminded me of that, and it was weird. I broke out in a sweat.
Yeah.
I let my dog out the yard, and it was dark here. I live in California now, and I have an 8-foot wooden fence, and there was it was dark, but yet you could see there was something on the fence. It was like a black hole, And I went in the house and got my flashlight. It was a possum. It's like, that's sort of like what I saw. That reminded me of back then. And it's weird, man, how you still, I still get sweat. I'm sweating right now just talking to you about it.
Yeah, no, we were just talking to our last guest, and you definitely relive it. Ray, are you describing like a whoop? Is that the noise you're making?
Yeah. It was like that, but it just, I don't know, it just sounded like a loop, loop to me. And my friend said it was a whoop, whoop. And I said, well, I don't know, it could have been, but it just sounded like a loop, loop.
Interesting. I wonder if it was a
I think she was, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking, and maybe me being so small, and it was looking around, because there's, and all of a sudden there I am, and it's like, loop, loop. And then all of a sudden he comes out, or it comes out.
Right, signal.
And have you ever had like a Nerf little sponge ball, and you hold it in your hand? Yeah. And you open it up, how it expands? That's what it's like. when it came out of my playhouse. That's what that reminded me of. It was so big. It just expanded out. Just like, whew, it was huge.
Interesting. There's a lot that goes on in that East Texas. A lot.
There really is.
We get a lot of encounters that go on out there. And, I mean, it's such a fascinating story. I mean, I can't even imagine being 6, 7 years old, see this thing come out of your playhouse, and then, experience that, and then, you try and tell your parents about what you saw, and they kind of brush it off as a monster, and that's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to deal with as an adult, let alone a kid, you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. When I saw that, I mean, growing up as a kid, I was scared of scary movies. I couldn't watch scary movies because of that. But I went to Universal Studios when I was like 12 years old, and we're sitting there in a tram deal, and all of a sudden Frankenstein walks up, and grabs me, and I scream, but he started talking to me, and then I realized, okay, it's fake. But that wasn't fake what I saw, because my stepdad was in bed. I know it wasn't him in a costume or nothing, We had a couple of pigs back behind my playhouse here. About a year later, we found some pigs out at my grandpa's farm, some piglets, and we decided to take them home, and we were going to raise them. And we had them for about a year, about 9 months to a year, and they were pretty big. They did 150, 200 pounds, and they disappeared. About a year after when I saw my sighting, they disappeared. And my stepdad didn't know. He was pissed off. He said, somebody come and stole our pigs. But there's no way they could have gotten in our backyard and got them, They had to come through the backside in the woods, the creek area. But there's no road access or nothing like that. And my mother and I went and visited my mother the other day for Mother's Day. She lives in Texas, still back there. And I started asking her about it, and she said, you were just dreaming. You were just having a nightmare. And I said, no, Mother, how was it? What I saw was what I saw. And she said, well, maybe that's what happened to our pigs. But she never would admit it. But she said, maybe that's what happened to our pigs. So maybe she believed me there a little bit, Yeah.
I think deep down a lot of people don't want to believe that's going on. They always want to brush it off as something else. I think it's hard for...
Something more mundane, yeah.
Yeah, it's easier to go, hey, maybe someone jacked our pigs, instead of, saying, hey, maybe you actually saw what you saw, and maybe that's what happened to our pigs. And I'm sure probably a lot of other things happened on that property that maybe you weren't privy to, that, if you got your stepdad or your mom and you asked them, I'm sure there'd probably be a few other things that would raise an eyebrow as far as what went on there.
I would think so.
Yeah.
We can't thank you enough, Ray, for sharing the encounter, and thanks for listening to the show too, by the way. We really appreciate it, but we can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your encounter with us.
I appreciate you listening, because you tell somebody and they look at me like I'm crazy or retarded or something, but I know what I saw, and it's just.
Well, you're not crazy or retarded, so.
Yeah, you're not crazy. It's definitely the shoulders is the one thing you never forget, isn't it? When you see them, you're just blown away. Yeah. I can just picture the things squeezing out of your little playhouse, trying to squeeze its body out. I can almost picture exactly what you're saying as it's coming out. It probably had to contort itself to actually get into the thing to get the crackers, but to actually get back out, And there's so much that goes on in that East Texas. God, there's so much that goes on down there. It's almost like Washington. Really you would think that when people talk about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, they would talk about East Texas the same way they do Washington. I know Washington's kind of the main state everyone talks about, but sure seems to be a lot that goes on down there.
Yeah, I remember telling there was a guy who lived with us for a while. He was in the Army. He was friends with my stepdad for a while, and I remember him saying that he was going to go Bigfoot hunting in Washington when he got out of the Army, but he never did. Never did.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on up here, but I think down in that East Texas, there's a lot that goes on down there too.
Yeah. No, they say Washington is ground zero, but I tell you what, there has been a lot of encounters in East Texas.
I couldn't tell you where ground zero would be, but I know they're everywhere. It seems like.
Yeah.
I worked for the phone company for a while, subcontract, and I had a 400-mile radius. I traveled from here. I go to Clear Lake and go up to Tahoe and everywhere, and I always carried maybe some peanut butter cookies or crackers, when I went, just in case. It's weird, but I still do that. If I go camping, I still carry I go buy me those little packages of Ritz peanut butter crackers, And
a good plan B. Yeah, absolutely.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Bigfoot? What do you think about it?
Well, I know they exist.
Do you think it's an aggressive creature? Do you think it's a friendly thing? I mean,
that's what I've always puzzled me, because it didn't hurt me, and it could have, and it didn't.
Well, not
yeah.
Because you were.
And I don't. It was always weird, but this is what I told my buddy Rich. He listens to y'all all the time. I said, Rich, if we was to go out and if we was to, you and me, we was to encounter it, or one of them or whatever, I would squat down, get on my knees in front of it, and let it see that I don't mean it any harm. Just to see what it would do. If it ran at me, I don't know. I'd probably sit there and die or have a heart attack or something. I don't know, but I don't know what I'd do. I'd say what I would do, but if it really came down to it, I don't know. I might run. I might be scared. I don't know. But I say that because of what happened to me when I was a kid. I don't really think they're real aggressive. They might, try to defend themselves or something like that. But you don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I wanted to ask the question too. Is like we've had several people on the show before that. Well, going back, and Wes and Will, you probably remember the Brenda Harris interview about one of the daughters being plucked out of the back of a pickup, a child out of the back of a truck while it was going down the road by a Bigfoot. But yeah, this one did nothing to you, and so I was curious on what your thoughts were as far as being an adult now and things are, you have a different outlook on it maybe now than when you did as you were a child. That's why I asked the question.
Well, thank you, Ray. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing everything with us. Really do appreciate it very much. It was a cool encounter. It was definitely, I enjoyed hearing it, and I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing that with us.
Well, I hope one day we find them and really communicate with them or whatever. I saw a movie back when I was a teenager about the last Neanderthal or whatever, and he winds up killing himself thinking a helicopter was a god. Because they captured him and put him in a fake place, And that's always thought about the Sasquatch, about that if they did something like that to it, if they, caught one or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't think we ought to go out there and kill them.
Yeah.
I mean, these people you hear going out there hunting with guns and whatever. I don't see why they'd want to do that.
Well, we sure appreciate it very much.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening to me. I feel much better now.
Glad you come.
I'm overwhelmed. I'm sitting here walking back and forth. I'm putting a trail in my carpet.
And you know what? You're not alone on that. Most of the people we have on the show, they're nervous, I think they think a lot of times we're going to tear them apart. We're going to make fun of them, and we're going to say this and we're going to say that. But really, what it comes down to is we're all here kind of for each other, and we're all interested in the same topic. So. We're not going to beat anybody up. We're not going to beat you up or anybody else.
We're sort of more of a support group than than anything, I guess.
Yeah, I was nervous today. I didn't know what my buddy Rich said. They'll ask you questions and all this and that and other, and I was nervous, man. I didn't know what I thought you were going to call me. I'm faking and I'm lying. This was this and this was that or whatever.
People do that, but I think a lot of those people that do that kind of stuff have never seen one, so they don't understand. What you're going through, and they don't know how it continues to always affect you.
Yeah.
That's something I wouldn't ask those kind of questions.
Yeah. So that's something I guarantee you I will never, ever, ever, ever forget. It is there imprinted in my brain.
Absolutely. I know exactly, and I'm sure Wes and Woody know what you're talking about too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. And I will say this though, and this is my own personal opinion. Don't get too comfortable out there with them either. That's my biggest thing. It sounds like maybe later in your life you became maybe a little bit, I don't know, maybe docile or comfortable to them. But remember, they are a wild animal. And
they're right. Yeah, right. That's right.
You never
I wouldn't go walking up to one, But if I saw one, say 50 yards away or whatever, and I know it saw me, I would, kind of show it. Hey, like I don't mean any harm, But I'd probably still have a pistol in my back.
I'm just saying, be careful.
Yeah,
out there with the crap, or cookies or crackers, and because they are wild animals, So just
right.
Okay, Ray. Well, thanks for coming on.
Okay, thank you for having me, and I guess y'all have a good evening.
All right, you do the same.
All right, thank you.
Well, another interesting couple of encounters from East Texas.
I want to thank Ray for coming on. I know next week we have a law enforcement official and possibly a couple of law enforcement officials that wanted to come on and share an encounter that they had while they were out on the job. And it was kind of a fascinating encounter to read when he had sent me the encounter. We'll probably change up the name and the locations and everything to protect the identity, but it was an interesting encounter that he shared, so I'm hoping to get him on next week.
Hopefully, yeah. I'm still waiting to hear back from him. I actually was contacted by another one also, different law enforcement official. I haven't had a chance to ask him to come on yet, but I'm going to be doing that here shortly.
Yeah, the one that originally contacted us, he emailed me back and said he'd love to come on anytime, so I think he's pretty much a go for next week.
Sounds good then.
Well, I think that's it for tonight, fellas. I want to thank everyone in the chat. I want to thank everyone for tuning in.